Tony, since we last spoke, do you have a name or name to keep an eye on for Seattle at the end of round 2? Second question, which country produces the best fans? And Trey, how do you think the Seahawks should approach a draft with only 3 picks, fresh off what was a somewhat awkward offseason with their quarterback, Russell Wilson?
Tony, you want to start?
Sure. In my mock, I had Jason Oweh of Penn State falling. I don't think he's going to go as early as people think. Darrell Taylor has not panned out. We don't know if Darrell Taylor is ever going to play. We talked about this during your podcast. So I think if a top, and as we know with the Seattle Seahawks, they put precedence on the player. It's not necessarily the best player available. It's the player that fits their system. That's the way they always go. That's why they always throw a curveball on draft day and take players that no one expected. So I haven't taken Oweh. I think if another top flight edge rusher is there, that's the way they go, because that's what they do. They take a player that fits the that fits the system. As far as your second question, listen, whatever country produced Led Zeppelin, that's number 1 in my book.
Tony, playing to the home crowd. Love it. Listen, Seattle, you're right. Awkward is the only way to describe their offseason, because, if Russell said, well, I don't want to be traded, but these are the teams that I would okay a trade to, tells you he's okay with being traded. And if it got that far, Seattle was okay with trading away arguably one of the top 3 quarterbacks in football, which is mind-boggling to me. But there has to be something about it, right? Like, you can't deny Russell's production. You can't deny his ability, but he obviously does something to irritate people. I mean, I don't know what it is, but, you go back to the beef he had with Richard Sherman when they were teammates. And I think Seattle felt a little pushed a few years ago when he demanded that new contract before the 2019 draft. And, they produced that little awkward video. Hey, Seattle, we got a deal, in bed, which was really weird. There's just some sandpaper there. And it has nothing to do with ability. So you're right. Weird and awkward was the only way to describe this entire drama this offseason. And it was unfathomable to me that they would even entertain letting him go. And I think cooler heads prevail. But there's clearly something there. There's a burr under the saddle, and we just can't figure out why and how bad it is.
And just to go back to your point when you were talking about Sam Darnold and the Jets, that's the whole contradiction. The quarterback position is viewed as the most important, but it seems these days it's also the most disposable, whether it's Jared Goff, whether it's Carson Wentz, whether it's Sam Darnold, whether it's just what you mentioned with Russell Wilson, a guy who has no issues on the field. So it is amazing how the most important position on the field also seems at times to be the most disposable position.